Let's do this again. Turn it up. Sweetwater Candy. Animo, $30 app. Best app you can get on a phone or an iPad. We can't hear this speaker that well. Probably too bassy where you're sitting. One of my earliest embarrassing lyrics. My deepest wants. Oh, really this whole song. All right, all of the above from 2019. I think I used the smash hit joke way too often, so I will spare you this time. We haven't done one of these videos in a while, so and I'll be honest. One of the reasons that I just sort of paused doing these videos is this song, because I can't remember exactly what each lyric was supposed to be. So I wrote the songs. On both albums, I wrote them concurrently. You know, I mean, they all take me forever and ever and ever. It's the issue is, I mean, I know when it's right, but it's getting it to where it's 100% legacy defining right. You know what I mean? To where I know it can't be better than this, right? That's it. But when I get it there, I know it's that. That's it. You know. So I wrote them all at the same time because I have to, and also because the songs provide me with a chance to get a break from each other. You know what I mean? Like it's a level of obsession that there reaches a point where, and everybody reports this part, where you start to get tired of a song, you start to turn on a song, you start thinking maybe it's not as good as you thought it was. In my case, it's just an anger at it not being right, you know, and it's exhausting. And so when I start feeling that, I can move over to some other song and I'll move to the song that I'm most excited about. You know, I'll move over to a song and it's like, oh, wow, yeah, I love this song. This is great, blah, blah, blah. Even though 7 months prior, I had been on that song and resigned in anger and frustration at it, you know. You should be the biggest fan of your art, but you should also be its harshest critic in a way. You know, I say I know other people work otherwise, and that's fine. I know other people have a more laissez-faire approach where they don't judge it and stuff, and that's not my approach. And so my approach is to very much judge it. Um, a corollary of this is I would never ever ever work having had too much to drink. The way other people would work high, I would never do that. I almost never work with it too loud. Sometimes I'll just revel in the volume of something, but for the most part, I want to maximally hate something at any given time while I'm working on it. Because if it can impress me, impressing someone when they're inebriated in some way, that's big deal. That's what jam bands are for, right? Shots fired, right? I mean, it's music so boring that one would have to. I'm sure some of it's great, but I'm sure some of it's great. But if I wanted to hear somebody going, for 3 hours straight, I can't imagine ever wanting such a thing. So, but I would imagine you would have to have some other form of mental entertainment, like a drug. But yeah, always work sober, work quiet for the most part, with it not loud, because you will be unduly impressed with loud things, and when somebody has it quiet on their phone, for example, it's going to be far less impressive to them. So it should be impressive at any volume. It should be impressive at utter sobriety. It should that's where you're looking to impress people. So or my approach. Your mileage may vary. I know other people make fantastic art doing the opposite of everything I do. So um, all of the above uh, is so. Oh, so I wrote them all at the same time, but there were three in particular that started taking on the flavor of what Fantasticboom would end up mainly being. So like songs like Gabby and Meg, those aren't trying to hit, they're talking about strictly mostly terrestrial affairs, right? That aren't huge big picture existential crises. Songs and then there's some songs that are kind of in between. I mean, I Thought I Could Save You is a little in between. But How to Build a Hole, all of the above, The Flavor of Regret are, I would say, that's where what I think of as Fantasticboom, what I think Fantasticboom is, and certainly the second album is, and the only type of art I would do anymore, what it is the giant lyrical statement that not just talking about a big picture thing, but trying to make claims that songs haven't been about, and trying to make a case for some very some trying to make some grand philosophical statement that has all the existential relevance to your life, right? That's challenging you in a way that each of us need to be challenged, right? So How to Build a Hole, as we already talked about, was about the way that the choice against religious belief is a deeply motivated choice, right? It's not a strictly ones and zeros intellectual choice, but the will does have a role to play in that, and probably the choice for it, right? As someone who's devoted innumerable hours to the intellectual questions of is this true, is this not true, I am convinced that there's nevertheless a deeply emotional drive for everyone in the question and considering the question. So all of the above was the early, maybe I mean, it was definitely an early attempt at a very grand statement, and that grand statement, and I'll show you how, in my opinion, maybe how this is a type of lyric writing that I would never do again. right? I think in general the first album is a bit more obscure, a bit more veiled. You know, the meanings are more veiled than the second album. Um, but but and you know, I know for a lot of people that's what they want. In retrospect, I would never do it that way again. Um, there's a old quote. I've heard it attributed to Nietzsche. I've only ever read of Nietzsche. I've only ever read the Genealogy of Morals. Um, I don't remember seeing it in there. I don't know. I never have seen where it's from. It could be just completely fake. There's a fake Luther quote in this one. Uh, that the person who wants to sound profound tries to be obscure, but the person who knows himself to be profound tries to be clear, right? If you know the ideas where the profundity is, that's the word, right? Profundity? That's got to be it. Yeah, profundity. I mean, that's got to be what that word means. I know it's a word. Where the profundity is in the idea itself, then you should endeavor to make that idea as clear as possible, uh, so that people can see that it's heavy, that it's worth giving due attention to. Uh, Whereas we've all known people who weren't particularly profound. I mean, artists in particular, right? I mean, a lot of the famous artists, I think, are like this, uh, where they're trying to sound heavy and they're doing so by veiling the message, right? I I take a shot at this actually at the end of the second album. When I Save the World, their poems are veils more weighty than their words, right? Their poems are veils more weighty than their words. The all the weight is in the poetry, but what they're saying is flippant, banal. Uh, so this song is about this notion. But now and then I'll get into how I did a bad job of it, like how I went about it, which is partly how I did lyrics in the on the first album, and how I think this song is the worst example of it in retrospect. At the time, I was perfectly happy with it, but as my attitude about what Fantastic Boom should be changed, I look back at this song and say, okay, this one's too obscure. It's way too obscure. But the idea here, which is in some ways a fundamental part of my theology, my anthropology, my cosmology, really, um, is something that also shows up in The Flavor of Regret in a much more personal way, and then elsewhere, which is basically a Thomistic notion that anything that we can enjoy here on Earth wasn't created. But I'm coming at this from a Christian perspective. It's a so your mileage may vary, although it's a perfectly reasonable set of presuppositions for this conversation, particularly when Christianity rests on excellent evidential grounds, and excellent rational grounds. And so, anyway, I won't get into that, but we can. I would love to. I do plenty of I want to say work. I don't have published work in that. So my published work, this, my published work is philosophical theology. So on the bivalence of future tense propositions. This is neither here nor there, but this channel is me being excited about what I'm excited about and just talking about what I want to talk about. So feel free to fast forward a couple of minutes. When I was in grad school, I had this crazy idea that I would get journal published while I was still a student, right? And I was really swinging for the fences as a grad student, and I at the time a notion called open theism was making waves. Open theism is the notion that God doesn't know the future free acts of humans, or just of free agents, the future acts of free agents. It's at least originally, possibly, at least for some people, motivated by the old question that Aristotle took up, which is can a can a future really, I mean, the way it's always said, can God foreknow something and that action actually be free when it comes time to do it, you know, because it can't not happen if God already foreknows it, right? um God in this case is actually a bit superfluous. He's the guarantor that statement is true, but what's really at issue is if the future tense proposition Jones will mow his lawn tomorrow is true, is Jones free tomorrow to not mow his lawn, or does he mow his lawn freely, right? Uh, so really, God's participation in that topic is a bit superfluous, um, but some people are perhaps motivated by that problem to jettison the idea that God foreknows future free actions. They do that on the basis that those future tense propositions about free actions of humans are not bivalent. That is, they are neither true or false. So bivalence is the property of being either true or false, right? This bivalence includes one of the two. Always is one of the two. It's not true or false. This is bivalence, is the not conjunction, but the disjunction of either true or false, right? Whereas a future tense proposition, if it's not bivalent, it just doesn't have a truth value. It's not true. It's not false. It just hasn't been given that property yet until the action either takes place or doesn't take place. It needs an existing referent to refer to. Anyway, my journal article that I did succeed in getting published while I was I hope this is coming across okay. Um, but it's definitely me chasing a rabbit. But that I did succeed in getting published while I was still a student, a master's student. It get quoted. I've got a book in there on God and Time on Oxford University Press's analytic theology series, and it's referenced in there, so it's kind of cool. That's actually the thing I'm most proud about. So, but anyway, I poke holes in in that position. I think I say there are fundamental problems with that position, and here they are. So. Um, uh, this 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 idea that shows up in all of the above, it shows up in The Flavor of Regret in a more embarrassing context, and I think permeates later songs as well, just mainly because it permeates my thought, and these lyrics are always my thought, right? Which is why they're so dorky, right? Um, so this is the notion that it's very Thomistic, Thomas Aquinas, which is that the things that exist in creation exist because they're participating in God's creation. Now, my position isn't that of this participation, and I'm not going to get into his notion of participation, that they're basically that they're borrowing, they're using God's existence to exist, right? I don't take a stand on that. How the freak could I possibly know that? But I mean, it's possible. But at least for me, there's this notion that God didn't create anything on earth out of sheer spontaneous creativity, right? That yes, of course, the zebra, a zebra is a colorful what's it, I'm not ruling out the evolutionary process here, by the way. So we can get into that on a Zoom call if you'd like. But that the things that we enjoy on earth, all the experiences that you can take in, the taste of cinnamon, the taste of cilantro, the smell of justice, I don't know what that means. The feeling of victory, the taste of, I already said tastes, the laughter, thinking something's hilarious, right? Any sight that's beautiful, any physical feeling that's beautiful is actually a is actually a foretaste of what eternal life with God will be like. That there's nothing you can everything you can enjoy here is a way in which you will enjoy God in the future, right? And I base this on multiple lines of reasoning, but one of which on the on the Jewish and Christian worldview, there is to be a bodily resurrection, right? That you die, your soul, whatever that is, or we can get into dualism or versus materialism, but um, uh, there are Peter Van Inwagen, like a Christian materialist. If anybody wants me to talk more about that, I'll at least point you to. There's a little range, a small range of options within Christianity, possibly, on that topic. That yes, when you die, your soul goes to be with the Lord, but you're naked. You're supposed to be bodied. Whereas, so think about it, the nations around Israel, all of the Greek philosophy that's happening. I mean, everybody else thinks of salvation as liberation from the body. That the material world is evil, the spiritual world is good. It's this substance dualism that has a heavily moral element to it. So much so that for the pagans, God himself, Zeus or whoever, or for the other nations, these whoever their gods were, their main god did not create the physical world, because the creation of the physical world was an evil act. Whereas the Jewish Old Testament, the Jewish scriptures start with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. By the way, the heavens mean the sky and space, right? So he created the physical world, right? It's this claim that actually creation is good, matter is good, and that humans are meant to be material. You're meant to have your body. So for the Jewish, on the Jewish reckoning, the end of the world always included a bodily resurrection. Always, at least since Ezekiel included. Actually, arguably since Job. There's a statement in Job that is fascinating. And though I am no Hebrew scholar, what does it say? In my eyes, when he's something like, when he stands on the earth, I know that my Redeemer lives, and when he stands on the earth, I will see him with my eyes, or my eyes will see him, or something like that. It's fascinating because I think it's possible that in Hebrew it's saying when he stands on my grave. So there's this notion of a bodily reawakening from Job, possibly the oldest book in the entire Bible. So, but certainly Ezekiel's got it. Ezekiel's got it. Daniel's got it. It becomes very explicit later, where at the end of the world, there's going to be a bodily resurrection of everyone, that you'll get your bodies back, right? And the New Testament absolutely takes this on, with one very interesting surprise, which was, it turns out the Messiah went ahead and did it by himself ahead of time. That one person went ahead of everybody else into his bodily resurrection. Very interesting. So, anyway, so creation is good, matter is good. It's a good thing, right? But that the things that we enjoy here, right? If I love the sound of Fantasticboom, if I love the Dr. Feelgood album, just that opening riff is so cool. That's a great riff, man. All right, so if I love Dr. Feelgood, that enjoyment is a way in which I will enjoy God. Oh yeah. So what I was saying is, on the Jewish and Christian reckoning, you're going to get your body back. By my reckoning, if we're getting our bodies back, surely it will still retain the sense of smell, right? Surely this isn't. Not only will it have the same capacities, at least at bare minimum, the same capacities that my current body has, and then some, maybe very heightened powers of each of these senses. But that I would have to think that those different senses aren't just going to be superfluous and at rest and wasted for all eternity. If I have the capacity to smell, I'm pretty sure I'm going to smell something. And I'm pretty sure that thing I'm going to smell is God himself. And the thing I'm going to see is God himself. And I'm going to hear God himself and taste God himself and think and be. So the way that that truth is, I mean, I love just true things. Is that I mean, I think maybe that's it seems a strange statement. I don't hear anybody say it, but I assume everybody feels something more or less that way. That just truth is its own reward. So an intellectual happiness, but also I think, you know, finding something hilarious is an intellectual happiness, right? That God will be hilarious, and it must be the happiest being who exists, the absolute happiest being, and that's what he wants for us, is the sheer happiness of communion with him, right? And why sin is such a terrible, destructive thing that is a social contagion. Especially, we will talk about that, and when we get to phosphorus kids, the social. Anyway, so all right, I can't chase every rabbit here, but so all of the above. Back to that. Building on that notion that the things that we enjoy here are foretastes of ways in which we will enjoy God there, right? That cilantro is a down payment of, for lack of a better term, because I couldn't possibly peer into this mystery of what God tastes like. What I told my kids a long time ago, heaven. I usually don't use the term, by the way, because it's here. It's the new earth on the Christian reckoning, and on the Jewish reckoning. It's the new earth. It's the new heavens, sky and space, and the new earth. It's saying the new physical creation. Will be like riding a roller coaster, eating cotton candy while somebody tells you the funniest joke you've ever heard. Complete everything firing off at the same time. Like, yes, this is the fulfillment of my nature. Or, let's put it more specifically, beholding God himself is the fulfillment of my nature. So, and that is a very Thomistic conclusion. So, right there. So, I don't think I did Thomism necessarily in the middle parts, but the flavor of regret, particularly, the bridge, will apply this notion to my greatest failure. A subset of my greatest failure as a human. And that in particular is where Fantasticboom turns to what it is, which is an embarrassing discourse about my journey. And the second album is 100% that. An embarrassing discourse on my journey, and it placed in the context of, it interpreted through the lens of true things. I mean, just here's a paradigm for understanding them and why it applies to your life and stuff. And honestly, I gotta be honest, I'm agonizing over the flavor of regret, August and everything after, over whether to get into, how detailed to get into what they're about, So anyway, if I should humiliate myself, say so in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's what I'm supposed to say. My one person's tripping out right now. My friend Alex. We have plans. It's gonna be funny. Okay. Well, all of the above. Okay, so here's where I failed on it. I know it's been a while since we here. Why don't we start listening to some music? Oh, okay. Let's start listening to some music, and I owe you an explanation of how I failed. But there needs to be some sound that's not me jibber-jabbering. How about them drums? Let's listen to, oh man, spinning wheel of, what do you call this? The spinning wheel? All right. Bucky Wheaton. Pretty much that. Why is it this? Is because go listen to the best Deer Hunter album. It's called Weird Era Continued. I'm the only person who says it's the best Deer Hunter album. So take that with a grain of salt, but it's awesome. And the first track is called Backspace Century. And woo, buddy, I love that track. And I kind of used it as a general thing. There's the chorus. Let's add that. Let's add everybody doing. I had them wrong key. Because in this breed, right now in this instantiation, I can't be wanted like I need. I want to be loved so much, but that it's unavailable anywhere, right? The amount that I want to be valued, to feel valuable, seems to just positively escape me everywhere, right? That nobody is capable of doing that. That is a recurring thought in Fantasticboom songs. Not the love part, but that the object of your happiness isn't here. I mean, the greatest object of your happiness, the fulfillment of your desire, is not here. Let's put the bass in. Me on bass, distorted. Not a pick, I don't think. There you go. All right. So, yeah. There's the rhythm section. The vocals. When the album was done, I had one thing that I wish I could change. One out of the entire thing. Over the years, I really started second guessing. I think I may have talked about this. I really started second guessing whether Gabby should be there at all, and was talked out of removing it by some friends. And what appears to now be a former friend. So the current, anyway, this is sad development in my life. I'm not happy about it. Anyway, let's listen to some more songs, some more parts. I mean, that's crap. Okay, let's look my friend Krista, who is Krista Miller, a far better singer than I am. Let me just let's just mute mine and get hers here. She's a far greater singer than I am. She also sang on the very last song on the second album. I Can See Our House From Here. That it's her singing in the second verse. This is her. Not very heavy lifting, but so yeah. I'm the worst singer on all of my albums. I don't need to tell you all that. You're very, very aware of that. Okay, but to go with that, I very, very rarely use presets from. I'm not a big VST user. Mainly because I figure like any VST I go to, a million other people are using this sound. So it's like I can't use that stuff. And then I hear some of it, it's like, man, this sounds like $1 trillion. But also I guess but anyway, this is an old Native Instruments, and that's another thing. If I can find something very old, like on my old software, sometimes I get a little more interested in it. So, but this is a very old. This is a preset, I think, from FM8 or from Absinthe 3 or whatever it was at the time. It's either from Absinthe, Native Instruments. I like very little of the Native Instruments stuff. It seems like they're so into, like when I go to the try to use their effects, it's like, I don't find, it doesn't sound like I want it to sound. When I look through synth sounds, they don't sound like I want it to sound. But if I'll find a synth VST, that's not, by the way, I will use synth VSTs like a Juno, or whatever, you know, a synth, right? But not a cooked sound, you know. And like keyscape, I have keyscape. I was surprised at how few pianos there were. That was such a disappointment. Some of the other stuff was cool, but if it's just a sound that I may as well not mic up, then maybe I'll use it. But anything that's kind of cooked, you know what I mean by cooked? That's an old term that recordists used. But anyway, this is a theremin sound. If you go back and listen to the track, you'll hear it doubling. What is this? Okay, so I know this. It's not labeled, but I know this sound anywhere. It's an OP1, Teenage Engineering OP1. I the reason I know that's an OP1 is because there ended up being like 2, maybe 3 sounds that I ever used out of the OP1 before I sold it, because I overused those sounds, one in particular. All right, so that was the first chorus. Oh well, here let's go back. First one. That's a long reverb. Oh, it's a delay. Yeah. Let's see what all these things are. All right. Here's a sound I don't use very often. You know that's Mellotron. Actually, there's little clanging things. I used Mellotron a little bit on the first album. I basically never touched it the second time. There was this realization, you know what? Everybody's using Mellotron right now. Not everybody, but plenty of people. And I'm not going to use them. I like it here, though. This is a place where I'm happy that I used it because it really does sound the part. So we got some Mellotron, but what we're all here to hear are the pedal steel parts. My friend Mitchell Smithy, great Dallas player. The other, you told us there's no green and blue. Who'd have believed it? Love would cure everyone. You. Wait, I was going too fast. So there's some more, and there's some more. Here's it. That's in verse 2. That's the beginning of verse 2. Anyway, pedal steel. Mitchell Smithy, great player. I've done a bunch of country gigs with him. He's totally burning. Totes burning. Let's see what this sound is. Back in verse 1. Okay, Animogue. No, I'm sorry. That's not Animogue. That is a Vermona Performer. Really cool synth. You can look it up. It's a rack, sort of rack synth. Really cool. I used it in verse 2 of I Thought I Could Save You. But that's halfway through the verse 1. Is holy other. Anyways. And that more or less the same thing gets played part. So those are the verse 1 sounds. Here's chorus 1. Guitars. Hey. Guitars are going to show up in the heaviest song, and they're not going to go away for the rest of the song. Here, let's put the verse in. Actually, all right, we got a lot. Wait, what was this part? You know what? Let me get to this just since it's up there. Here's a pad. I don't remember at all what this is. I think it might actually be a guitar that's reversed. Like, I mean, because there's a click in them. I don't remember what it is. All right, so we're in chorus 1, and here are the guitars, right? They sound very Interpol-y, I think. And bass. There's that flat 7 chord. Verse 2. Cool. I think that is Echo Boy. So let's look. I like the right one. I like that. Anyway, all right, that's the right side. There's also Dan Electros that come in here. My 12-string Nashville tune. It's one on this side. Nashville tune, Dan Electro. I got rid of it. I couldn't get it to sound great. I mean, that's about as good as I ever got it to sound. It shows up in verse 2 of Meg as well. There's a, what is this? OP1. That was back here. In this breed, I can't be wanted like I need. All right. And then comes an Animogue solo. This really is Animogue for sure. You can tell it's the... So on Animogue, you can make the keyboard be just in a key. Which also means you can slide across the keyboard and it's only right notes. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And as it turns out, you can make that Animogue keyboard, you can just rig it such a way that it can be a MIDI controller for your hardware sense. So there you go. Shenanigans. All right, verse 2, trim guitar. Here was the other oh wait, there's a really cool. I'm gonna turn this. Wait, where is it? Where's the? Sorry. Anyway, verse 2. This was the other homage to. I say homage. Maybe it's just I stole the sound of it from the song I was already listening to. As like, I kind of want it to sound like in this wheelhouse. By the second album, I really rarely did this approach. But it can be helpful for hacking your inner producer into hearing a more finished version of the song that you're writing. So much of writing songs and producing songs is hearing in the future to what it can be, what it will be, right? And so if you use a song as a model, a recorded song that you like as a model, it can tell you, okay, imagine your chords, your melody, your lyrics, but with this drum sound, this bass sound, the sound of this band, right? In that Backspace Century song, by the way, I mean, the code name for this song, it was never called All of the Above until the very end, though that made sense, right? All of the perfections you can enjoy on earth are reflective. Is that the term I used to use? Reflective? Yeah, reflective. Because Augustine talked about, and Calvin both talked about nature as the theater, the mirror of God's glory. And they also said the theater of God's glory, right? So that it's, I used to use the term, it's reflective of some perfection in God, right? Some way that you'll, some perfection that you will personally encounter if you are a redeemed Christian. At some point I will make that case. It's my channel. I'll talk about what I want. But on that Backspace Century song, oh, so the song was just always called Backspace as the code. Later I changed it to All of the Above because I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's a good title for this. I'm just as meticulous about the titles. That's why, by the way, Apple Music making me, on the second album, making me capitalize the beginning of every title. It screws up, in particular, especially, it screws up August and Everything After. August and Everything After is supposed to obvious enough, not obviously enough to be cheesy, I guess, but obviously enough be the adjective August, as in respected, right? But but Apple Music makes me it's you can't have. I'm sure. I'm sure freaking famous people can do whatever they want, but here I'm no label, no one to fight for me except DistroKid, and they suck. So anyway, back to the sentence I keep trying to say. The On Backspace Century by Deer Hunter, there's a big like hardcore uh, tremolo thing, and this was an old preset in a Native Instruments thing. Like, even if you bring it up, the GUI is old looking. I don't remember what it is, but it's violent, and that was the point. So verse 2, I felt your touch. It's now the monster in my dream. When it's all over, let's all go plant an apple tree. Those Dan Electros are back a little, and there's the thing. So here, let's see, is this oh wait, nice acoustic sound, and there's a Dan Electro right here. No, that's not the Dan Electro. There is a Dan. I felt your touch. It's now the monster in my dream. All right, I owe you this anyway. The way in which I think lyrically I would never do such a thing again. One of the ways, so the whole process of making Fantasticboom was like, I'm gonna make an album, blah blah blah. I need to make it what it is that I can do. And at the time, at the beginning, it was just like instrumental music. And that's what it was going to be, which means it was almost none of these songs, right? None of the songs that actually made the album. Over time, it was like, I remember I was listening to an Interpol album. I was getting way into indie rock. This is literally like 2012. This is how long this album took me. I was already making the album 2012. This came out in 2019. This is why I don't want to do an album anymore, because I don't enjoy that level of obsession for that long, and that the pressure that I feel like it has to be. I always use the term legacy defining because it is, because that's what these things are. I mean, and anyway, so it makes it to where there aren't any small decisions, particularly anything that I have an opinion on, which is everything. So but on this album, so eventually deciding, okay, I was listening to an Interpol album. It's like, you know what, I want to do this. I don't want to do instrumental music, even though I'm good at I could do instrumental music, and I have no idea how to do vocal music, but this is what I want. So that was that. I only listened to cool indie rock for years, just trying to make sure the right instincts were there, right? Meanwhile, trying to write, starting to write melodies that I thought might be singable, but I always assumed somebody else was going to be the singer. At one point, I hired Kayla Bratcher, who is now Kayla Sinclair, or I think she's now just Kayla. She's in M83 now. The redhead. Oh, no, I don't think she's not redhead. Whatever. But I hired her. She was a local musician, and I was like, you put lyrics to this song that I had already written, not this song, but a song that I had already written for the instrumental album, and you'll never hear it. So she wrote some lyrics and sang it, and she sent me the recording of her singing it. And it was like, nah, that's not right, and blah, blah, blah. And over time, it was like, you know what? I just have to write my own lyrics. Over time, the longest decision was the decision that I'm just going to be the singer. And Jace from Besner Lakes was very helpful in counseling me and giving me the push off the cliff. Just do it. You have to just make the decision to do it, But okay, my early lyrics were too literal. They just sounded cheesy because it was me saying what I thought, right? And I knew that wasn't right, so I was just constantly trashing lyrics. One of the techniques I latched onto early was realizing that, okay, these lyrics, if I write lyrics that don't really necessarily mean anything super clearly, and I pair them with lyrics that are literal, that the two together achieve a sort of, that the literal lyrics shed the interpretive key on the vague lyrics, and the vague lyrics give the song a more artistically, I think, cool, viable approach than just speaking literally, right? And the two together can combine to make something that is both clear and obscure at times, but also the obscure lyrics. It's clear what they mean in light of the clear lyrics. Basic hermeneutical principle here. Context, 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 as they say. How you interpret a text. Well, on this song, I barely ever got around to putting the literal lyrics in, and that's the failing of this song. This is why I think this song it's impenetrable. You know, you really can't tell, except toward the end when I say a particular thing. You can't really tell what I'm talking about, and even that thing doesn't shed particular. It's more like an implication. My bridges tend to be the implication of what I've been saying, right, or some sort of outworking of what I've been saying. Just like the songs just end on the bridges, it doesn't make sense to go back. If I'm saying an implication of what the song has been about thus far, it doesn't make sense to go back and say the chorus to me. It just never lyrically it never made sense. Plus, I like the bridges transforming the songs, and that's something in retrospect, I realized I did get from, in particular, a great model for me was the Besner Lakes Are the Dark Horse album, and the Besner Lakes Are the Roaring Night. So if you listen to like Besner Lakes Are the Roaring Night, either of the part 2 songs, or Chicago Train, was that maybe that was on the previous album, maybe that was on Dark Horse, but these songs that they get to, or You Lied to Me, or there's another one, what's hold on, Besner Dank Horse. Wait, what are you doing? I pressed something on here, then it went to the next song. Hey, it's my song, I can play it. For Agent 13 by Besner Lakes. I would play it, but obviously I'll get flagged. I might be able to get permission for it, but why bother? But check those songs out. The way the bridges transform the song into something else. I realized later was definitely playing in my head, or maybe at the time I realized it. But on this song, back to the lyrics thing, I almost never get around to doing any literal lyrics. I never get around to saying something that shines literal truth on what all the lyrics are about. So now that I'm telling you what it's about, it's mainly just, here's kind of a vague, overly poetic example of this. Here's another vague, overly poetic example of this notion that the perfections on earth, everything that you can enjoy on earth, is reflective of a perfection in God. But here's the thing. So why it took me so long to get around to doing this video is I was thinking through some of the lyrics. I was like, I don't remember what that one was supposed to mean. So, and that happens on a few of them, and I was embarrassed by that fact. And for somebody who thinks of himself as a lyrics first writer, to not exactly remember, maybe over time I'll remember what. I do know I felt your touch. It's now the monster in my dream. That was a reference to 1999, and just something I think I mentioned this in passing. Just an event that I say happened to me once in my whole life, an experience I had that I think I talk about it in the I Thought It Could Save You video. Yeah, I had this one event one time. And I mentioned that Pascal maybe had a similar event. I mean, I would have no way to know how similar it was. And it's the monster in my dream, in that I wanted to relive it ever since, and it seems to not be in my power to relive it. And even through thinking the same things that led to it, and it did start as an intellectual realization. But yeah, I've never had the experience again. So anyway, sometime maybe we'll talk about it. Or maybe I already did a lot. So I felt your touch is now. So what are the lyrics? hold on. I think your love was half the reason I believed in shapes and colors. So shapes. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, this notion. I had this idea that what we really enjoy visually are just shapes and colors. That's all it is. I'm sure, but somebody has a much better analysis of this. But I just got convinced it's really just shapes and colors. Of shapes and colors. Your world of spontaneity is wholly other. This idea that you all, my hypothetical interlocutor here in this case, that's part of the problem. I think is I act like I'm addressing people. That's one of the things I don't like about the lyrics of this song is I change who I'm talking to through it. The you is a different reference. In verse 2, it's a reference to God Himself. In verse 1, it's a reference to some hypothetical interlocutor who thinks like most people, which is that God just made things that are just things that are virtually unrelated to Himself, and your world of spontaneous creativity of where God just thought, here's a cool thing, and here's a cool thing that is wholly other than who's where does that term come from? Martin Buber, maybe. Holy otherness, that God is something completely different from us. It might be Eastern Orthodox, but surely not. Anyway, Orthodoxy. Sometime I'll probably start getting into it. So, yes, I'm excited about it right now. So, your world of spontaneity is wholly other. This notion of yours that the world was created, that all the perfections of the world were just spontaneous acts of creativity on God's part. Is this notion that the creation is completely wholly other than God Himself, and we can't understand Him. We can't. Um, you told us there's no green and blue. Notice green and blue. I mean, the idea of one thing, that idea of participation, right? That's not an analogy for participation, but that anyway. You told us there's no green and blue. I'm stating there's green and blue in the sense that there's this perfection in this other perfection. So it's not an analogy that can be pushed very far without theological error. So, who would have believed it? Love would cure everyone you knew. Reference to the gospel. But in this breed, I can't be wanted like I need. So here and now, even though these perfections await me, and I mean, and these perfections they are enjoyable here and now. I'm still very unsatisfied. Very unsatisfied. I felt your verse 2. I felt your touch is now the monster in my dream. When it's all over, all go plant an apple tree. It's kind of a reference to a myth about Martin Luther, saying, if tomorrow you were, yeah, you knew the world were ending tomorrow. If you were gonna plant an apple tree today, but you found out that tomorrow the world would be ending, what would you do today? He said, I'd probably go plant an apple tree. Actually, he probably didn't say it. I think it's. I don't know Luther very well. I know you can pit him against himself. I know he's pretty inconsistent. Maybe not even just through time periods, but Sunday morning we gave the wind to the trees as their inheritance to do with as they please. Vague creation talk and a reference to inherit the wind. Ain't that like you and me to give a fruit that we weren't even going to eat? More creation talk. As for me and my deepest want, the thing I want the most is to be loved, right? To have a very deep relationship with someone. I never told you my fantasies are all that I could be content with anyone. So notice it's not just that I'm not loved enough by someone. It's that I have this problem too, right? So I guess I kind of remember what the lyrics were about. But there are these parts where especially in verse 1, it's like, and also it's just painting the picture so piecemeal, as opposed to I think a more anyway. Anyway, so back to music. Verse 2, I felt your touch. I do like these acoustic. Also, I like that. I felt your touch. I like that pedal steel thing. That's cool. I like that. I like that, man. All right. Let's all go plant at a nice little, I'm pretty sure this is Josh Hanlon, a brilliant player. 99.9% sure that all the Animoog is, he did that and the Animoog solo at the end of the first chorus of Gabby, right after the first chorus of Gabby. He doesn't just play Animoog. So I've mentioned him before. He's whatever gig you do with Josh Hanlon on keys, you're pretty sure that's got to be his main style. So I think maybe even the first gigs I ever did with him were country gigs. And I was like, this is the best country player I've ever heard. And then you do a jazz set with him. It's like, holy crap, he's a brilliant jazz player. And that, I think, is his main bag. He's got a very ECM vibe. And then you accompanying a singer, he's flawless. He's flawless at rock, at anything, you know. So he's played on a bunch of my stuff. So, and a lot of live stuff too. So he's the piano player. We did a live version of "You Are All We've Got." It's a quartet with Mike Luzecki on upright. Mike Luzecki, the First Call Dallas bass player, and Josh Miller, good friend, great musician. But that's Josh Hanlon on keys. Brilliant player. Chorus 2, mostly the same. There's a new. Oh, that's clearly they're winds. Oh, that is what. Maybe there's a wind sample. All right, but anyway, chorus 2. Okay, in addition to the. Oh yeah. 3. I cut out the one we already listened to, but there's Dan Electro on this one. Actually, there was in the first chorus too. Different take. Flat 7. All right, bridge. Now, what we've got here. I need to get going here. Oh wait, here, let's unsolo them alls. All right, and let's turn up. The pads are gonna start. Because in this, it's just guitars, the paddy stuff. I don't remember what this is at all. That's 4 different pads. I mean, we could narrow it down to anyway. Oh, there's a part coming up. I know that I'm running over time. I'm trying to keep these to be in an hour. Another Animoog thing. I like that one. That one's cool. But yeah, it's mean sounding. Killing. All right. So Sunday morning we gave the wind to the trees. Big guitars. This is clearly the biggest rock moment on the album. Fruit that we weren't even gonna eat. Oh wait, oh sorry. Oh yeah, all right, so the outro part. Now, there's a very interesting, this is a historic thing for me. right at that moment, there's for what is for me a historically important moment, and it's this. It's gonna be too loud. It's clipping also. That moment right there, that was the first of all Fantastic Boom. That was the first thing where I was like, that's right. That's right. Like that is going on the record. It's the very first thing ever. I called it Talk Talk because it reminded me of something that would have been on Spirit of Eden or Laughing Stock. If you haven't checked out those albums, worth doing. There are my favorite track on out of either album is Newgrass, which I explicitly, intentionally, and I wouldn't do this if I didn't mean it. Just try to make sure you realize that Phosphorus Kids is not a retelling lyrically of Newgrass, but it's whatever. It's clearly I'm trying to make a version of that song. So, and the way this is kind of like the second closest I ever get to doing anything like that is this being like that Backspace Century song, and it's not really. I mean, everything about it is different except for just here's the drum beat that's been used on a zillion songs, and I went ahead and put the wobble. Weebles do that. But this right here, this was from the Vermona performer. But it was just I just played 3 notes and put the tremolo or something on it, and it was for me. It wasn't just that this is the first song, the first sound that I knew would be on the album. It was that for me, it was proof of concept that I can be happy. That I could be happy with something. So ironic for the lyric that's happening. Wow, I have never even thought of that. The lyric is right in that moment, right before that is that I'm incapable of being happy. I have a internal failure, right? Ironically, that sound right there that comes right after it was the whole time I was making the first album was playing in my head. If I can be happy with that 2 seconds, right, with that one sound, then hypothetically, I can find 31 minutes of just that. I wasn't planning on 31 minutes, however long the album is. I like short albums, but I don't like them so short that they don't, like I want to feel like an album, but I don't like really long albums. So I like, the 30-ish, 30-something minute mark is perfect. So for me, I mean, I explicitly, repeatedly told myself this. Like, this is not going back after the fact. And I like at the time when I was very discouraged, which I constantly was about making this. It's also why it took 7-8 years, something like that. This sound was the proof of concept for me. Is if I love that sound, if there can be a moment that I love, there can be 31 minutes of such moments. And so that sound was just sort of the motivation for never accepting something that I wasn't 100% behind. 100% behind. Even if, like I said, the lyrics here, even if over time it's like, okay, nowadays I would do that differently or whatever. Well, I had it down. know what? I had the steel too low there, but what is that reverb? Oh, Valhalla. We used a lot of Valhalla vintage verb on this album. Tons. And a lot of Echo Boy. Now I'm into Valhalla delay. I don't know how many of you have that, but Valhalla delay is easy and fast, and I'll show you the chords here. So anyway, that's, aside from maybe showing you the chords, which I never do on this series, that's pretty much the explication of that song. And now I got this one out of the way, and next time we'll do, obviously I'm doing them in order. We'll do Meg, and then we'll get to Flavor of Regret, which is, like I said, the first time I have a very big decision to make. Like I said, more so in Flavor of Regret and August and everything after, but it could go in the other places. But also notice more than this song, you know, especially toward the end of it. It's really just the end. It's starting to turn to, well, no, this was very much that way. Actually, no, I Thought I Could Save You. I mean, really, the album is so largely about sin, and the second album is about repentance. So I'm thinking like a G add 9, right? Well, anyway, Sunday morning we gave the wind to the B minor of some sort, D major 7. So like a 4, 6, 1, right? Ain't that? Maybe I should play the song, show you how to play it. Yeah, you know what? In this breed, I can't be one. I think 6/9, or I don't remember. I don't know what you get. I mean, you know, the chord is an amalgamation of all of them together, but that's a guitar part. You know, 4 chord, 5 chord, right? Because I'm in the key of A, right? So 3 chord, 4 chord, 3, 5. Start 4, 5, 3, 4. I felt your touch. 6. It's now the monster. Some sort of A. 1. In my dream. Anyway, back to this. Yes, that's it. B minor 9. G major 9. Sunday morning gave the wind to the trees. Some sort of B minor D. So 4, 6, 1, right? And then that intro. It's all a 4. B minor. It's a major 7, but it's really sus2. So like thinking that shape, major 7, sus2. I think this is a 3, but it's really 1 over 3. So, it's, by the way, it's changed keys now. Right, we're in the key of D now. So Sunday morning we gave so and then basically after that it repeats that, and then mostly the bass notes change at different times. The heaviest part, the outro after the lyrics. Wait, oh, sorry, hold on, sorry. Sorry, it's B minor 9, G add 9, B minor 7, D. Then. That's the last chord of the song. So. All right, there. That's how to play it. And that's that song. And that's the longest video in the series, and I apologize. So, of course, I mean, you're not obligated to watch it. But if you made it this far, then congrats, you're the winner. So, yeah. There you go. Meg next time. I'll do it next week, for sure. Because I want to get back on schedule with this. Because I really want to get to the second album.